would he do if someone killed a person that matters to you the most, and then completely got away with it? Anything you do would result in you being listed as a suspect due to probable cause, and you don't want to be known by everyone as a murderer. What would he do? I want you to think about the action you would take personally. Chances are, you might choose the same answer that Jack did. Through visual imagery and tape recordings of past log entries, we're able to piece together the story of a man who's insinuated to have been killed by his business partner, Felix. His primary incentive seems to have been that he did this for his position as the founder of a potentially lucrative company. It's also just possible that he was trying to prevent himself from being exposed. Fearing that anyone else could provide witness testimony to Mr. Walton's disappearance, he programs the restaurant's mascot to target a list of potential whistleblowers. Ironically, this animatronic contains the traps full of Jack Walton, but he's unable to do anything to stop the order from being carried out. When a story is being told only by one person, it tends to be very one-sided and leave out anything that would contradict what they've said in the past. I think this is what's going on here, and I'll do everything I can to try proving it to you. We know that Jack's children were killed in a drunk driving accident involving Felix on May 2nd, 1974. Mr. Walton is later reported missing June 11th. Bones Burgers opens for the first time on June 28th, and the first murder of a staff member occurs July 14th. Susan Wooding suffers the same fate just 5 days later, and eventually the establishment is forced to shut down due to the recurring disappearances of employees. Everything is relocated the following year to a bunker located in the outskirts of Brighton, Michigan. On July 14th, 1978, a group of volunteers are sent to restore the animatronics to their original condition. They are unsuccessful, and as far as we know, it isn't until October 10th, 1982 that any technicians are dispatched to finish the project. Now you might have noticed that I never included the death of Rosemary in this timeline. The reason why is that we're never actually given the date of her disappearance. But what I can do is give an educated guess that it occurred between 1975 and 1978. Here's how I got that answer.
Jack, Susan, Charles, Rosemary, Sophie.
Since a different tone is played to indicate whether or not the target is still alive, we can assume that Rosemary was dead before the tape was made. The recording was discovered by the volunteer who was killed in the first restoration project attempt, so we know it happened before 1978. Sophie, Rosemary's daughter, is seen to be wearing the outfit of a storage facility caretaker when she witnesses her mother's death. That position was not a thing until the relocation project was launched in 1975. She would have been 15 or 16 at the time, so it makes sense that they were together while Rosemary was showing her how to handle having her first child. I know this is a pretty big window of time for it to even be bothered being mentioned, but it does for the point I want to get across. What comes to your mind when you look at this timeline?
Trash!
Felix being the one behind the murders no longer seems to make sense. Why would this man risk the business that he's invested so much money into, drawing more attention to himself with all the disappearances of his employees? Also, how did he program an animatronic built in 1974 to kill off the witnesses? Facial recognition and the ability to walk wasn't something that these things were incapable of. If this takes place in the same universe as this series, then that would definitely loosen the constraints of what's possible. But again, this animatronic was made in 1974, and these guys come after that. You see why I have a hard time believing this? So then how is it possible for the rabbit animatronic to be killing anyone? Well, we know that it's being possessed. We've just been led to believe that he isn't responsible for his actions. When Jack finds the shallow graves of his children, his fragile mental state is finally broken. If hell does not exist, then he will make sure that Felix's life becomes one. He may have escaped punishment once, but if Jack were also to disappear after the death of his children, an investigation will be launched and Felix could be charged with all 3 of their murders. Jack drives straight to the restaurant, unlocks the front door, and lets himself in. He forces himself into one of the animatronic suits, then kills himself. If anyone was to find his body, it would look as if he was killed and then hastily hidden from view. Unfortunately, it's Felix who finds him, and seeing that he's being framed for murder, he quickly disposes of his body before he's caught. Seeing that his sacrifice went in vain, Jack goes to a more extreme measure by possessing the animatronic and brutally beating to death one of the staff members. This death will be a lot more difficult to cover up, but until Felix is finally caught, Jack must not be associated with it. He cleans the gore off his hands, and that's when he notices that he damaged the servos in his arm during the struggle. He will have to wait until someone fixes it before he can make his next move. Otherwise, they might escape. When he is finally brought into the back room to be repaired, he remembers something important about this individual. Susan Woodings is the only animatronics engineer that they were able to afford to employing. Felix is clearly only going to keep on getting rid of the bodies that he hides in the animatronics. And even though it rouses more suspicion towards Felix, it leaves more blood on Jack's hands. So why not get rid of the person that runs the main attraction? One more death is better than several, and if it means putting Felix out of business and possibly even in handcuffs, then so be it. Felix somehow manages to avoid being put under investigation, but he does end up shutting down the restaurant after losing Susan. He has everything moved to an underground storage facility, where the animatronics that house the souls of the dead are entombed. Jack slips further into insanity and destroys everything to the best of his ability so that Felix has nothing to go back to. He doesn't know how long he's been trapped here when he hears the voices, but it would take an eternity for him to forget that it belongs to his wife. Unable to bear the thought that he may never see her again, he calls her name so that they can be together once again. Felix may have broken this family apart, but Jack will do everything it takes to bring them back together. The only one who's still missing from this family
is his little buddy.